So, things to remember from Laudato Si number 5. The cry of the earth, cry of the poor. Environmental degradation affects the poorest, those who can't adapt. When we study the causes of poverty, it is often because of an unfair redistribution of resources, which is the same system that destroys the environment. The poor and the earth are speechless. And so, here's what happens. When we look at the causes of poverty, systemic poverty, the reasons why people stay poor, and we look at environmental degradation, we start digging and looking at those root causes, and we find the same thing. Greed and colonialism and stuff like that. So when we start working on those root causes, we're also helping those crises. Actually, the encyclical goes to say that you might be identifying on the pinnacle different types of crises, but it's all basically one single socio-environmental crisis. It's social and it's environmental, and we have to work on both. Things to remember from Laudato Si number 4. Praised be to you, my Lord. This concept of praise and gratitude toward God are the key to ecological conversion in order to love our world and care for it. Saint Francis is the model to follow in his Canticle of the Creatures, from where the expression Laudato Si comes from, is a praise to God for the beauty and goodness of creation. Things to remember from Laudato Si number 4. Praised be to you, my Lord. Okay, so it's this concept of praise and gratitude towards God. They're the key to ecological conversion in order to love our world and care for it. Saint Francis is the model to follow in his Canticle of the Creatures, from where the expression Laudato Si comes from. It's a praise to God for the beauty and goodness of creation. So the concept of praise is so important because, let's go back to the basics. There was once in your life you were sitting down and you saw a sunset, and that beauty moved you. There was the sense of awe, and this awe is the beginning of praise. Basically, awe, everybody experiences it, and the believers simply orient that awe and send it towards God. That's praise. And so, why should we be taking care of the environment? The regular answer is one of two. Usually, people become aware of environmental problems. Some of the prognosis for the future are not good at all. So we become scared of the future, and for that reason, we start acting. So some people are motivated by fear. Other people are motivated simply by a sense of responsibility. I must do this. Some people, it's a sense of responsibility they have within themselves. Others, it's because, well, the government or the city asks me to recycle, so I'm going to recycle. I must do this, so I'll do it. But then Christian ecology comes from a very different approach. The motor, the fuel to our actions every day to care for the environment is not fear. It's not even a sense of responsibility, really. It goes beyond that. It's because it comes from praise. We love the Creator, so we want to care for His creation. Things to remember from Laudato Si number 3. Change is possible. Now this one is funny. It's repeated many times in the encyclical. But what I find funny about it is that, it's the Pope. He's an old man, wears this robe, and makes lots of speeches all the time. And here we have him like a coach who is saying, change is possible. You can do it. It might be discouraging. You might think it's impossible, but no, you can do it. Change is possible. And he repeats it all along. And I was just amazed to see this empowerment coming from the Pope, and even giving some very honest examples of how change can be possible through just one person, through little gestures that become much bigger. When confronted with the environmental crisis in front of oppressing power that destroys nature, some are discouraged. So the Pope encourages us by reminding us that every action makes a difference, and that each prophetic voice adds to others in order to bring change. Things to remember from Laudato Si number 2. Everything is connected. That's like one of the key phrases in there, and you can see the paragraphs, the numbers, where this comes about in the encyclical. All creatures, including human beings, are all linked together to make up systems that are related between them. That reminds us that we are responsible for how much we consume. Interdependence also invites us to a universal fraternity. So there's lots to unpack there, but basically just to say everything is connected. To give an example, starts with a meal. You have in front of you, and I've been doing this for more than a decade now, no, actually practically 2. I sit down and I look at what's in front of me, and while I do the blessing, I am also thinking about where do these things come from. And I'm wondering, like the fish on my plate, is it from a river close or a sea far away? The vegetables, are they organic, and the coffee, is it fair trade? And I'm always asking myself these questions. It just shows that it's not just me in a bubble. I'm interconnected with so many other people and so many other creatures. And that's also the reason why I now have chickens in the backyard. I live in the suburbs, and my city authorized them, so I have chickens, so I know where my eggs come from. And I know what I'm feeding the chickens, so I know that, and I feel connected to the chickens. Then we have a bunch of maple trees. So we get the maple water and then boil it to get our own maple syrup. Have a huge vegetable garden with at least 20 tomato plants. And so all of these things that I have in front of me during a meal, and that's what I'm teaching my kids too, is to know where your food comes from, and you'll be healthier and you'll appreciate it much more. Yeah, so we're connected, and there are things that I buy that come from other countries, and I try to make sure it's fair trade, and just realizing that we're connected. Can't feel alone after that. And things to remember from Laudato Si number 1. Our common home. Oh, I can't tell you enough how excited I was to see before Laudato Si was published. I was wondering, how is he going to talk about the earth? Because the Bible talks about the earth in in a few different ways. There's a sense of place, obviously, like the promised land. The promised land, well, we could say that, you know, the Hebrews seem to possess the land, but it's actually the other way around. They belong to the land in their descriptions. Like they don't feel good in exile because they belong to Israel. They want to come back to that land. And the Bible talks about the land in different ways. Mainly, you know, it's creation. It's God's creation. Adam is made from the earth, from the land. He's supposed to serve, to cultivate the soil. Anyway, so I was wondering, what would be the expression? Even, you know, my in my writings and in my presentations, I would usually talk about creation, which wasn't in the title, and I was surprised about that. So, Pope Francis chose our common home as being the expression used to talk about the earth. And I think it's such a great expression because it doesn't make the earth divine. You know, we're not talking about the goddess Gaia or Mother Earth. I mean, we can talk about Hindus or native spirituality where Mother Earth is an entity you pray to. And that doesn't work in a Christian context, unfortunately. And it also elevates the earth maybe a bit too high. I mean, we can be totally amazed by all, you know, the interactions, and it kind of gives the impression it's a living being. But as Christians, we'll relate to the earth more maybe like a sister, if we consider her a living being, but not as a mother. That doesn't work with like the Trinity. We already have one God and three persons. Mother Earth is not included in that. And also, it's my personal conviction that a mother doesn't kill her children with an earthquake, and a mother doesn't kill her children with a flood. And there are so many destructive powers on Earth naturally that I can't see it as a mother, as her goddess, because it's just there's too much destruction. Okay, so that's on one side. The earth is not considered divine, and on the other side, you have all these people in finance and economy that just consider that, you know, the land and its resources don't have any value unless they're extracted. And so just to see everything that doesn't have an intrinsic value, well, that's not very good either. So we're in two extremes. One, it's considered divine, it's very high in value. The other one is just no intrinsic value unless it's extracted. And so what's the middle ground? Well, recognizing that it's our common home. The earth is where the human family and all creatures live, and it is where God provides for them. So, love that expression, our common home. And plus, another word on it, ecology comes from a Greek word, oikos, which means home. So that was kind of like a good way to start. You know, it's the oikos, it's the home, it's our common home. Thank you, Pope Francis, for those 5 things to remember. Like a great teacher, you repeated them all across the encyclical, and now we can remember what these 5 things are.